welcome to another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I tell you, I am super excited about today's guest, someone I've admired his work for years. Let's get right to it. One of the regular features that we do on this show is something called Hidden Gems, which might be something you've never heard about before, but it's something in our area that I think really deserves some mention. And he's not a hidden gem because you've seen his work, you can see it online, you can see it in the paper, and according to my notes here, you can see it in a number of publications. But I think he's certainly a gem for our area, and that is Peter Pereira, who is a photojournalist for the Standard Times. Great to have you on the show, Peter.
Pete, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
We have run into each other, I don't know how many times, at events.
Countless.
Yeah, countless events. I remember you came up to me once, something at the Whaling Museum, I think, and you were like, you saw me taking notes with a pen and paper, and you're like, dude, digital recorder, you got to go this way. So,
yep.
So you have been, am I right? Is it the Standard Times or is it a different?
Well, the Standard Times is still the newspaper, but online we are southcoasttoday.com.
Okay. And you've been taking pictures for them for how long?
I became a staffer in 2000, so it's been 24 years.
And one thing that I find interesting looking in the notes, and I think you told me this once before, this was not your first choice for a career, right?
No, I actually have a degree in computer engineering. I graduated UMass Dartmouth in '92 with a degree in computer engineering. And shortly afterwards, I opened up my own company. It was called .com Micro. I did custom computers, networks, and so on, but it's not what I really wanted to do. At the end of the day, I always wanted to be a photojournalist.
Were you into cameras and photography when you were a child?
Yeah, because a camera is a technological toy.
Okay.
So, I was fascinated with the idea of this device that can capture a moment, even if it's a still moment that, is a moment in time frozen. But that always fascinated me. So then the irony is, as I transitioned to being a photojournalist as a career, that's precisely the time that cameras went from film to digital. So I came in at the moment where I was literally ahead of everyone because of my technological background.
Nice.
So things like email or digital files, that was nothing new for me. While a lot of photographers who had been in the business for a long time had a real hard transition into the new realm, which we now are all used to.
I was going to ask you about that, about how if digital has made life easier, but you were there. You were ready for it.
Yeah, at the beginning we photographed in film. My career...
And then you go in the dark room.
Yeah. In '98, when I started stringing, not just for the Standard Times, for various other publications, we were still all shooting film. So you'd have to go into the dark room, you'd pull out the film canister, put them in these canisters, turn on this machine, the chemicals would rotate, and you'd hope that nobody messed around with the machines, because if they did, those photos are gone. And that happened to me many times.
Oh, really?
As a matter of fact, the last thing I actually photographed on film was long after we'd already started using digital. I decided to do a book on the Franciscan friars, which people in New Bedford know, Our Lady's Chapel downtown.
Right.
Those guys are all Franciscans. And I decided to do a book in black and white film. There was only one small problem, is that we hadn't used the machine in so long, people thought there was something wrong with the machine and would continuously shut it off. I lost over 30 rolls of film.
30 rolls?
30 rolls. So each one had, 36 exposures.
Wow.
So that's how many photos got lost forever because somebody thought the machine was, by accident, making noise. Yeah.
What did I read the other day? Somebody was talking about if today's kids could even grasp how we used to take pictures of an event and then we'd have to send them away to be developed.
Yeah.
And then we get them back and realize half of them we cut off their heads or whatever, and we still had to pay for those.
That's right. I mean, even now, I think there's a small resurgence in people who want to use film.
Okay.
And it quickly starts becoming apparent that it's an expensive proposition when you don't know what it is that you photographed. So like you said, Pete, you'd get your little envelope you'd unroll the envelope
Yep.
and you pull out the photos, and the first one is terrible. It's all out of focus. You don't even know what's going on. You're like, I just paid how much for this? That's the beauty of digital.
Right. You see it right away. Let's go back. You were
Yeah.
born in Portugal, right?
That's right.
Okay. And your family came to America?
Yep.
Did they select New Bedford, and why here?
My family's story as immigrants is very different. We were actually doing quite well. My dad was an officer in the Merchant Marines,
Okay.
so he was second in command of a boat. As a matter of fact, by the time I was 5 years old, he had already brought my mom and we lived in South Africa for almost a year. We lived in Angola. We were very well off. And then what happened was, most people who know about Portuguese history, there was a big revolution. And during that revolution, almost the entire country went on strike. The only reason we came to the United States was to visit my grandparents who had been living here forever.
Oh, wow.
We came here never to stay. And then my dad would call, like, are you guys done with this? No, we're still on strike. Well, a month, 2 months, 3 months, and here we are all these years later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What was that transition like for you? Can you remember? Was it difficult? You were 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
Was it difficult to get into the American school system and all that?
Well, remember, I didn't speak English. I had been here before, though. Yes.
Okay.
I'd come when I was like maybe 6 years old to visit my grandma, who had been living here. Now, my grandfather, my grandfather came aboard the Lusitania in 1912
Oh, wow.
to the United States because he was a fisherman, and there was a big fishing community in Gloucester. So my family's got long roots of living in this area. But anyway, I came, which is where I became a Jets fan, by the way. Don't
ask him about that.
And so I came to visit them, and I didn't speak a word of English. So when my parents decided to eventually stay here, my first exposure to English as a second language was really at Carney Academy.
Okay.
That's where I learned how to speak English. I had a
Nice.
bilingual program for 1 year, and then the second year after that, I was just integrated into the regular school.
So quickly, how did you become? Because we've covered before how I'm a Dolphin fan.
Yeah, I noticed your
Yeah.
helmet over there.
1972.
We're in the same boat. We're in the same boat, Pete, around here.
Yeah, true. With the rivalries, but the Jets haven't been good in a long.
No,
well, the Dolphins haven't either.
Right.
But,
Well, what happened was, it's pretty simple. When I came to visit my grandparents, I came alone. Yeah. My
at
parents.
6 years old.
Yeah, my parents threw me on a plane. No joke. I came, and my aunt and uncles already lived here.
Yeah.
And I remember one day, I went to my aunt's house on Rivet Street, and I sat in front of a TV, and there were two teams playing a sport. I had no idea what's wrong with these people hitting each other.
Right.
One team was blue and white, which was the Houston Oilers, I found out.
Okay.
And the other team was green and white, which was the New York Jets. Now, anybody who knows anything about Portuguese culture knows that the soccer community is around three teams. You're either a Porto fan, which is blue and white, a Benfica fan, which is red and white, or a Sporting fan, which is green and white.
and white.
So I looked at that and I said, that's my team, because of course I'm a Sporting fan. Here's the weird thing, Pete. A few years ago, when my uncle, the same uncle whose house I was
Right.
staying at, died, we were talking about the same exact thing. How did you become a Jets fan? And I decided to look up because I started doubting my entire experience. Like, why would the Jets and the Oilers be on TV to begin with? And I found it. They were only on TV because it was the first game of that season.
Oh, okay.
And I actually found the date and the time I became a Jets fan. So there you go. Now I'm having to pay for it ever since.
And does it still upset you that we call it football, or because it's not?
No,
not football.
It's not football
to
per
you.
se. There's no foot involved. But no, I enjoy football quite a bit, actually. It's probably the one sport outside of cycling that I truly enjoy. Even if I can't compete in it, I enjoy watching it.
Do you still cycle? Because I remember
Every day.
you were really into it.
Oh yeah, I still am. I still race. I'm a USA Cycling licensed racer. I'm a Cat 2.
Wow.
Last year I was second in the state championships and masters. So yeah, every day. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if your viewers see me all the time. I'm sponsored by Domino's Pizza. So if you see a guy riding a bike with Domino's written all over them, that's me.
That is so cool. You're a photojournalist.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a photographer and a photojournalist?
I'm glad you asked that question, Pete, because
Okay.
I think there's a misunderstanding of what it is that a photojournalist does, or what they're supposed to do anyway.
Okay.
The big difference is simple. A photojournalist works under a set of ethical rules. We don't pose pictures. We don't tell people what to do. We don't coach people and say,
wow.
go this way or that way. People don't realize that. I simply document what I see outside of my control. The only
Okay.
control that I have is what I do with myself. I can stand up higher. I can get down lower.
I've seen you get in some pretty odd positions to
Yeah.
get there. And did I read once, I don't know where I heard this, did I read that you're afraid of heights?
Yeah, I'm afraid of heights unless I have my cameras.
I was going to say, because I've seen pictures from you. This man's work is amazing. If you've never seen it, go to peterpereira.com, correct?
Yeah.
But I'm sure you've seen it. But I've seen pictures. Did you climb a mast of a sailboat once?
I've done that a few times. But don't ask me why or how, because you're right. I don't like heights. However, there's something magical about the concept that you have the capability of putting someone else in a position they might never be. And that drives me to do things. Okay, our community is all fully aware of the 2 wind turbines in Fairhaven,
Yes,
right?
right.
Those are very tall. When I had the opportunity to go to the top,
That's right.
I went there. So imagine my surprise when this guy opens up a hatch and I step out and I'm on top of the wind turbine, and you can literally cradle it like a saddle.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was terrified. I was terrified. But I got some great photos.
You'll never do it again, but you got
No,
some-
I'll never do that again. But it's funny, but when the camera comes up, it's a transformative moment. It's a magical moment because I'm fully aware of the impact that image could have.
Okay.
You know, like nobody's ever, well, not, a very few people are going to see Fairhaven or New Bedford from that vantage point.
True.
Or even something that's been there forever, like the Unitarian Church in Fairhaven. How many people have photographed from the top of that? I've done that many times. So I cherish those moments.
I wanted to tell, I almost told you this before we got started, and I was like, well, I'm going to save it for the show.
Okay.
I was recently in Texas for 3 weeks. My daughter lives there with her husband and my grandchild. And their guest room, which my grandson says, that's Grampy's room, because I've been there a few times.
Yeah.
She has pictures of home in that room. So she has a painting my cousin did of Butler Flats,
Oh, that's
lighthouse. She has a picture of Fairhaven High School with the big flag flying. And she has a framed photograph that you took
I did.
of, I guess we'd say, the center of Fairhaven in the snow.
In the
You
snow.
remember the shot?
Yeah, that was from the top of the Unitarian Church.
It's
Well-
an amazing picture. And she's got that because, you know, her husband's in the Navy, so
Yep.
they've traveled around, but she latches onto home
Yeah.
with that picture.
See, that's the reason I take the picture. Exactly for that reason. Because the still photograph, in your case, it brings you. It transforms the way you're thinking.
Right.
You know, and it brings you to a different place. So by looking at Fairhaven, even though it's winter, nobody really likes to be cold, frozen, miserable on a snowy day. But by bringing you there on that moment, you take all the good parts of it.
Okay.
You know, that romantic feeling of nostalgia and just looking at the city. And in that case, it's from a different vantage point. So Fairhaven looks completely different. It's
Right.
not at street level.
Sure.
That's
You tell
why I
me-
do it.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but in my book, I'm Not Done Yet,
Yeah.
I mention you.
You did?
Yes.
All right, I got to read that book.
Now, should
Pete.
I have gotten your permission?
No,
if
no.
so, I apologize. No, but
Wow, I'm honored.
the
really.
reason I mentioned you is because the point of the book, I'm Not Done Yet, is, you know, after I had my stroke and all this,
Yep.
I decided I'm not done yet. I'm going to keep
Right.
doing stuff.
Yep.
And what I tried to get across to people is there's no limit to what you can do. True, you might be limited physically. Like
Right.
I can't go to the top of the windmill or anything.
Yep.
I can't do that anymore. But And I mentioned, have you always wanted to, you deliver Meals on Wheels or do
Right.
this, do that? I said, have you ever thought about being a photographer?
Yep.
Because I mentioned, and the thing I mentioned is, you taught me to change your perspective. So if you're looking, for instance, I remember I was at a New Bedford Waterfront Festival,
Yep.
and there was a fishing boat and it was tied up. So, okay, that's cool, there's a fishing boat. But it was tied up, so it had the big rope. So I was able to do it at the time. I don't know if
Yeah.
I still can. I got down and I took the picture of the rope, the
Right.
line, whatever they call it, going up to the ship.
Right.
And just by changing my perspective from here to here,
Yep.
I changed the whole picture.
Absolutely.
So that's the mention.
I'm honored. Really, I had no idea, and I'll
Well,
have to definitely read the book.
I've really admired your work. I really have.
What, you don't
Because-
admire it anymore, Pete?
What's? No, Oh, that's right. Past tense. I really
playing.
admire your work. No, but
Thank you, Pete.
I don't know how many times I've looked at a picture either in the paper or online, and I've said, "How did he get that?" Because I'm like,
Yeah.
where did you had to put yourself in a weird position
Right.
to get that shot?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that drives me every single day is to show you, the community, something they've seen a million times in a different way. That
Okay.
really drives me.
Right.
I love this community, all of it.
I was going to ask you because I noticed, let's see, you've had images that have been in Time Magazine, Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, USA Today, The Observer in the UK, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Have you been courted to go to other places? Have you had offers?
Yeah, of course.
And obviously you've stayed here.
Yeah,
Why?
because I love it. I mean, it's really pretty simple. People ask me that question all the time. And I'm not the type of person who thinks the grass is always greener on the other side. I've been
Okay.
to the other side. I've traveled all over the world.
Okay.
I photographed literally on the opposite side of the world, from China to India and so on. And there's only one thing that drives me. It's coming back. End of story. I never think that I could be a better photographer or a better human living anywhere else.
Cool.
This is as good as it gets. Now, of course, there are many things that are wrong with it.
Oh, yeah. But
People always tend to think that somehow by moving, it's going to make them better.
you're
No,
still going to be the same
they're
person.
going to be the same person. It's how you maximize who you are
Right.
that ultimately defines your legacy.
I felt that way when I was down in Texas for 3 weeks, and I found myself realizing that, while we think, the food might be different, the weather was obviously different. It was 85 and sunny, but the people are still the same.
Yeah,
They're still
people.
They still have hassles at work, and
course.
the taxes are due, and all.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's the
different.
same exact thing.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love places. I love Egypt. I've been there twice. I love my hometown in Portugal, called Vagala, which is across the river from Figueira da Foz on the continent. But again, I've thought about this at length, and there's something magical about New Bedford and its surrounding communities, in that it has a long history. It has its ups and downs, and we've seen them all, even in recent times.
Right.
And the only way that you really become comfortable in where you live is to accept it all. It's not just to focus on the good stuff. It's to accept the good, the bad, and everything in between.
Right.
And as a journalist, I have a responsibility, and that's to show the community all of it.
How do you decide what to shoot? You mentioned to me, in fact, this morning, you said you were up and driving around at 6:30. Is that a big part of your day, just driving
Oh,
around
yeah.
and observing?
That's 90% of my day. 90% of my day is going out there and finding stuff. If I can find something that I think is interesting,
yeah.
it's probably really, really interesting for everybody else, considering I've been doing this for 24 years, driving around all day long. I'll give you an example today. So yesterday, I drove by what is the Little Phoenix, and I think it's on, I'm not sure if that's a Acushnet Avenue or
Okay.
it's in the deep
North
north
End.
end,
Way
off
up
of
north.
Braley Road.
Right.
That's not your road, is it?
It's somehow related.
That's pretty cool.
And all the mayors I've known,
Yeah.
I've never asked them, can I have a sign when you replace it?
That would be a cool.
I'd love to have it in my shed, you know?
Yeah, I got to have a word with the mayor.
Okay.
I think
All
you
right.
belong with us.
Yeah,
I think
it's
you
the-
deserve a sign.
The great somebody.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I drove by and I noticed this little restaurant that I knew was called the Little Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Looks brand new. It looks literally like it has moved into the 21st century. And I'm like, really? So this morning I went there.
Yeah.
I went there and I'm like, okay, is this new ownership? She comes over and she's like, no, I've had this for 25 years. And one day I woke up last November and I said, I need to change the whole thing. So what do you think is going to happen? Talk to the editor? And I'm like, hey, this woman painted the outside of this restaurant all by herself. She just wanted to upgrade the lift. So even something as simple as a restaurant that's been there for 25 years,
right.
If it can attract my attention, it must have been because it's drastically different than what I expected.
Right.
So that's how things start. But that's just an example. But it could be anything else. It could be literally anything else. It could be me driving down and then I see someone painting a trellis work like yesterday. I saw guys painting a trellis work at an old home in Fairhaven.
What do you do in that situation? Do you just...
I just start photographing. That's
so
exactly
you don't talk
what
to
I
them
did.
yeah, because they might start acting for you, right?
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
did
that's
that?
exactly right. I just want people, and then if they ask me a question, and I'll just tell them I'm Peter with the Standard Times, and if they're like, and if they say don't photograph me, I'm like, okay, no problem, I leave.
Yeah.
End of story. But again, that photo was a segue to a different story. Well, I'm photographing, and like you said, I like interesting vantage points.
Mm-hmm.
So if your listeners go on my website, I post my daily photo every single
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
So if you go through the calendar and you look, you'll find it. So I'm directly underneath this guy, and I'm laying down, and he's rolling on this plant trellis thing. And then I hear a voice, "Can I help you?" I look over, and there's a woman at this door. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm Peter with the Standard Times, and I'm just photographing them." And she's like, "Well, this is my house." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was an elderly home. I really did."
Right.
Well, she's like, "Come on in." So I ended up going into her living room, and it turns out I was partially right, but not really right. She bought the home in 2019, and now she's got all the licenses and approvals because she was a nurse.
Right.
To create a home for a transition for elderly people between their home and an elderly home or a hospice care. So now that's going to turn into a story, just because I saw somebody painting a trellis.
Wow. The other thing he does is, you've done this a number of times, I think, is you catch reflections
Yeah,
in puddles or even in raindrops.
yeah.
How do you see that? You're not driving by and say, "Oh, let me go."
No, I'm always trying to show you something that you've seen countless times in a new way. And okay, let's talk about water drops, for instance, right?
Right.
It's a rainy, miserable day. I don't know anybody who wants to go get their many $1,000 camera gear completely soaked. And I've done it many times. But there are occasions you're driving around and you're like, I really don't want to get out of my car right now, but I'm still driven to come back with something good. Mm-hmm. And I remember a few years ago, I took a shot of the raindrops, and you see the iconic Whaleman statue in front of the library downtown.
Yes.
And those raindrops are actually on the passenger window of my car. And I just shot it through the window of my car. I waited at the right moment where there was enough drops, because the rain was driving pretty hard, so that you could see all little whalemen and all the little raindrops. But it's just me like trying to always challenge myself every day.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I challenge myself every day. I always think that I need to do better than I did yesterday.
Still, after 20
Yeah.
some odd years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the driving factors of why I'm still doing this and why I haven't gone to do something else. Mm-hmm. It's just the idea that I have a responsibility to the readers of the Standard Times and to the people who like my work to always challenge them. And the only way to do that is to challenge myself.
Wow. And are you able to turn it off? You told me that you normally work 7 to 3.
Yeah.
So, like, does the camera get
Yeah.
hung up at 3 and...
Okay, you're going to die laughing with this. You would think I have countless photos of my family, for instance.
No?
No. No. When I get home, the cameras literally get mothballed. Because, I mean, it's like, sometimes it's hard to explain how draining it is, even when you don't photograph anything.
Yeah, because you're always thinking.
I'm always thinking.
Always looking.
Yeah, I'm always looking. And then there's that always that challenge of like, do I have a really good picture that I can use for my daily photo? And if you go on my website, I've been doing this since 2007. Every working day, I put a photo on there. It's got to be a good photo, because then I'm the type of person who thinks that you will always be judged not by your best photo, but by your worst photo. So that's why I try to elevate my game every single day.
Wow.
But yeah, I need to shut it off. On the weekends, don't even think about it.
We did something on the radio the other day. We were asking who has the most pictures on their phone. And somebody had like 20,000 pictures on their phone.
Yeah.
I would assume you don't have a lot
No.
because you take your camera.
I don't.
Wait, his camera, by the way, is only like 4 feet away from him right now.
Yeah, it's over there. Just in case, Pete.
So you don't take a lot on your phone, huh?
No.
No.
I don't, and I don't because, again, it needs to be for a purpose.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I photographed stuff on my phone that's ended up internationally. I'll give you an example. We had a hurricane a few years ago.
Yeah.
Both my cameras got waterlogged. They were not working. End of story.
Oh, wow.
I only had my phone. And I photographed a sailboat that had a couple of sailboats that had run aground in Pitnerum. And those photos were all over the country and all the major newspapers. And nobody said, hey, did you use your phone to take that picture? But yeah, I think of it as a backup device, but not to capture anything else.
Yeah.
I don't have all that many photos now.
It's been great having you here. Thank you so much. I'm glad we finally had a chance to sit down.
Thank you, Pete, for inviting me. It's a real honor, and thank you for all the work that you do. I mean, I think we're both in the same situation, that we love our community.
Yeah. Yep.
And as journalists, we're the only ones that have the capability of showing people what's happening in their community.
Right.
I take that very seriously, and I hope I can do a good job tomorrow and today.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Pete.
That'll do it for today's episode. Thanks once again to Peter Pereira, and don't forget to visit his website, peterpereira.com. We leave you with a thought for the day like we always do, and our thought this time around is, what consumes your mind controls your life. What you're always thinking about really controls what you're doing and how you react to things. So watch what consumes your mind. Thanks for watching. No matter what, go out and make it a great day.